what specific signals or behaviors make stakeholders trust a leader's readiness for larger roles?
The first thing is, can people take a deep breath before they make decisions? For me, particularly, I look for people who will challenge and help me grow, that they want to do something different. There's a desire.
At what point in a leader's career does presence start to matter as much as or even more than performance?
When you felt that I'm capable but I'm not confident, when you felt that I hope that people remember me.
Executive presence is widely talked about, but often misunderstood. How do you define executive presence in a leadership context? And when we say a leader has gravitas, there's a moment in almost every senior leader's career when performance alone stops being enough. You've delivered results, you've built teams, you've solved complex problems, and yet, when the next role opens up, sometimes someone else is chosen. Not necessarily more capable, not necessarily more experienced, but someone perceived as more ready, more trusted, more credible. This is where conversations shift from performance to presence, from capability to perception, from execution to gravitas. Welcome to the Leadership Edit, a podcast by CXO Steps, where we explore the real factors that shape leadership growth at the highest levels. I'm Akansha Singh, the host for today, and through my work, I speak with senior leaders across industries almost every day. And the one theme that comes up again and again and again, leaders who are exceptional at what they do, yet unsure how they are truly perceived. Leaders ask often, how do I position myself for the next role? What signals readiness at senior levels? What really makes the difference? And that's exactly what we're exploring today. At CXO Steps, we are a global executive coaching platform working with CXOs, senior leaders, through critical moments of growth and transition. Today's topic, ladies and gentlemen, is called Leading with Gravitas, How Presence Impacts Career Growth. Joining me today is Kenneth Lewis. Kenneth is a global leadership coach with over 22 years of experience working with C-suite executives, founders, and senior leaders across industries and geographies. He has worked with leaders from over 300 organizations, including Unilever, the World Bank, JP Morgan, PwC, Vodafone, and the Aditya Birla Group. Kenneth's work focuses on helping leaders deepen self-awareness, strengthen their leadership effectiveness, and increase their strategic impact. Kenneth, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here. And to begin, I'd love to hear about your journey and what led you to coaching senior leaders at this level.
Thank you. So 23 years of doing this has taught me one thing, that people with all the innate abilities and all the innate skills still find themselves wanting when they have to present that ability, those skills in the form of opinions, ideas, questions in front of people who matter. Now, why do I say that? Because in the years that I've worked with those founders, CEOs, senior executives, high potential individuals, I have found that their weak presence and the cost of their weak presence is real. And it's not just in training rooms, it's not just in meetings, but it's in day-to-day interactions that they have with people. My work has largely centered around then helping those individuals and making sure that they are part of that strategic decision-making conversations. It's not just being a part of an old boys club or, a young Gen Z club, but it's about understanding human psychology and what does it take for you to be able to connect with each other. It's those real lived leadership moments. For example, right now, Akanksha, between you and me, there is the need for both of us to present ourselves in such a way that we can create impact. You in your ability to say what you have to say in your introduction, being able to be articulate enough and say the right words at the right time with the right emphasis, and for me to be able to make sure that I'm giving in the conviction that I believe in what I'm saying. Now, all of that requires a conscious, intentional effort. For many people, it's natural. It wasn't natural for me all the time. I developed it over a period of time. My voice, my conviction, and my ability to communicate, my ability to make that presence where it matters has been developed. And I know people can do that too. Those same people who have found in them their executive presence being weak.
Absolutely, Kenneth. And I'm glad that we're starting on such a positive note. So take notes, ladies and gentlemen. And we're just beginning with the conversation. So let's dive into the core of today's conversation now, Kenneth. Executive presence is widely talked about, but often misunderstood. How do you define executive presence in a leadership context? And when we say a leader has gravitas, what are we actually observing?
So I want to call bullshit on executive presence here and say it in such a strong word because it is being marketed as polish, is being marketed and said that you need to be able to speak loudly and confidently. You need to be able to dress up and groom yourself into the best looking individual in that room, but it isn't. What executive presence is that people can be trusted. That's what matters. That when you talk about gravitas, it's about people's ability to have clarity and composure under pressure. It's a person's ability to have emotional steadiness. That means in the room, you're regulating the energy and the emotions that exist within the room. That means when you arrive, you're able to absorb chaos. It's your ability to have a moral center. That means you work with values and principles, and they leave an impression in the room, not just an idea, not just a data point, not just a suggestion, but your values are able to resonate. And it takes few seconds, few minutes, and sometimes even days. But having that intentional effort to get that going, that's what executive presence is. So executive presence and part of it, which is gravitas, is less about how you speak. It's about what remains unshaken when things are uncomfortable. So that's how I'll define it.
Wonderful. And rightly said, Kenneth, because a lot of times it's, like I said, it's misunderstood. It's people are started to think that it's more about how you dress up, how you groom yourself, or how loudly you speak, like you
Yep.
said. But of course, it's about how you conduct yourself, how much clarity and composure you have.
Yep.
So wonderful. Thank you for that. And so moving to my next question, Kenneth, at what point in a leader's career does presence start to matter as much as, or even more than performance? And what fundamentally changes at that level?
Let's not stop ourselves at career itself. Akanksha, remember the time you were in school when you
Yes,
felt that
yes,
your opinion should matter, right? When you felt that I wish people could hear me, when you
yes,
felt that I wish I could make a difference here, when you felt that I'm capable but I'm not confident, when you felt that I hope that people remember me, that people invite me to that party, that people invite me to that event, that I am wanted, that
yes.
desire begins from there. Now people go two ways. People say, I don't need all that. I will just trudge along with life with my academic qualifications. I will go along with life with my IQ and my smarts. I will let work speak for itself. The moment you do that, whichever rung of career you ultimately move to, you will find yourself limited, or you'll find yourself dependent on people to vouch for you. You'll find yourself dependent on the outcomes of the work that you create to constantly sell you, versus you being able to sell yourself as well. So it doesn't depend on which part of your career you're on. It needs to start with a desire. Whether you are a young, budding person entering into the workplace and you feel that you have ideas and you want to make sure those ideas are heard and they create impact, it can begin from there. Or it could be a seasoned person who has been able to create some craft, some kind of technical expertise in either finance, in tech, in medicine, in multiple areas, and they want their voice to be heard. They want people to take them seriously. You want people to remember what you said. You want people to be able to work on it, and you want people to work on it not only when you're in the room but also when you leave the room. So when you come back, people have moved ahead with your idea because they have bought in to your idea, your concept, your values, your opinions, your suggestions, your queries. They've taken it seriously. So it can happen anytime.
Absolutely, Kenneth. It was very much relatable what you said, because the desire starts from our childhood. We want to be seen, we want to feel important. And that feeling is carried in our later in our life as well, in our career. So, Kenneth, I'd like to challenge a belief that many leaders hold. And like I said, I speak to a lot of senior leaders almost daily. There's often an assumption that strong performance naturally leads to promotion. But in reality, we see many highly capable leaders getting passed over. So, why do you think? Why does that happen? And what actually determines whether someone is seen as ready for the next role?
Well, that's where they go wrong, right? Performance in the future is not guaranteed by performance in the past or the present because context changes, world changes, benchmarks change, technology changes. So the reason why you were successful yesterday and today may not be the same reasons why you were successful, why you will be successful in the future. And that is why one of the things that senior leadership, like for example, I lead a company, I have a team of people. If I have to think about promoting them, for me, it's not just their technical competence that has given them performance. I will start looking at the attitudes, behaviors, and values that they bring to the workplace. Say, for example, I have a very high performing individual contributor in my team, and I know in the future that that my company is growing and I want a manager. Why will I select that individual contributor to become a possible manager? Or even think of it. When they start showing me shades of certain competencies, especially behavioral, attitudinal competencies, like do they have bias for action? Do they care about people? Do they allow for other people to speak up? Do they speak their thoughts in such a way that it invites ideas, it invites, creativity? Or do they say no to things? Do they shut down other people? Do they use sarcasm to make their voice heard? Do they keep quiet when their voice should be heard? Do they fumble instead of making a particular point articulately enough so that people can hear? Do they hesitate or do they have contradicting approaches? Like one time they will say, let's be honest with our customers. And the second time they say it's okay to, sometimes screw up with our customers. Is there consistency? I look for those things because that's the vibe check, right? That vibe check is critical. Now, where does that come from? It comes from behaviors and values that people show. So strong performers often get not just unnoticed, but sometimes consciously ignored or put down that list because people say, उन लोग को वहीं पे छोड़ते हैं. Let us just keep them there. Individual performers.
Does this happen often, Kenneth, that strong performers are consciously left there and they're not promoted?
Yes, let's keep them there because we don't see them being able, we don't trust them enough to lead the organization. We don't trust them enough to take organizational decisions because they're not able to A, think beyond their domain, B, people do not lean in when they speak. And the company feels, can I trust them in a crisis? The answer is no, because they're only stuck with their space. And they have shown shades of, say, for example, being panicked, anxious under pressure. Higher responsibility means they should be able to absorb pressure, be able to absorb stress. So when people break very easily, good high likelihood if the stress increases, they'll break even more. And that may not look good for our brand, that may not look good for the department, that may not look good for the function. So three things. Why do people get overlooked? Because there are three filters that they do not consider. One is range. Can they think beyond the domain? Second, resonance. That do people lean in with the speak? Do people resonate with you? And third, do people have comfort with risks? That means are people trying to think differently, and can we trust them with doing new things in a crisis situation? So most high performers get trapped into what I'd like to call as an earned credibility loop. I've earned it and it keeps looping. And you're
Yes.
stuck there and they haven't really experimented beyond that, right? So that's my answer to your question.
That's a powerful point, Kenneth, because promotions at senior levels aren't a reward for the past performance, like you've said.
Yes.
They're a decision about the future responsibility. And what leaders often underestimate is that readiness is judged not on just what they've done, but on how confidently others can envision them operating at the next level.
Absolutely.
So, yes, Kenneth, from your experience, what specific signals or behaviors make stakeholders trust a leader's readiness for larger roles?
That's a good question. The first thing is, can people take a deep breath before they make decisions? That means, how do they hold tension? In a way, I'm saying is, how do they hold tension? Do they move too fast? Do they jump the gun? Do they, get so fixated on one thing? Or are they open up? Are they open to new ideas? Or do they bring in new ideas? How do they stay with complexity? Would be another one. What also matters is, how do they hold their ground with respect to certain values? And the values are known to others. numbers. So that's a signal. So for example, for me particularly, I look for people who will challenge and help me grow. So, and I will see that. Now, if people do that, I really appreciate it. And people do it consistently, I appreciate it even more. Not from the sake of being oppositional, but from the sake of wanting to really want to make a difference, that they want to do something different. There's a desire. So that's a key signal, because then when people challenge and people say we want to make something grow, they clearly have an ownership. They feel there's a stake. Then you don't have to ask them, let's be proactive, perform incredibly differently quarter on quarter. They do it themselves. They're self-managed. So that's a signal. The third signal is how well people use a very limited real estate called airtime. Airtime is everybody is given some space and some time within important decision-making events like meetings, brainstorming sessions. How well do people use it? Do people say, I don't have any questions? Do people say, I think what you said is enough? Does a person say, yeah, exactly what that person said? Or do people use the airtime to add value? Are they prepared to ask a question? Are they prepared to offer a data or a suggestion and shock the audience? Are they able to use that airtime where people say, yeah, that person, what he said was fantastic. That was great. How come I did not think of that? Do you come prepared with that? That's a signal that, most people want to look for. People who will come in with a data point that adds, changes, views as well. And the last thing is, I'll come back to the first point, is related, is the composure in those very unscripted moments that happen. Now, the unscripted moments would be moments where you're not planned for it. See, there's something called planned confidence. For example, today I'm this planned confidence in me. Yeah. Akanksha, you have told me those questions beforehand. So I know what to answer. Okay. And I know this because I back it up with experience. But those moments where you have not planned, those unscripted moments, how do you show up? Do you show up ruffled? Do you show up anxious? Do you show up hesitant? Or are you able to pause again, take a deep breath and maintain composure? Maybe sometimes even slow down. Go back to what is true. Go back and challenge assumptions in that current moment. Go back in those high stakes environment and ask the question, hey guys, I know we're all disagreeing. Hey guys, I know that we have a challenge going on, but what's really important here? Going back to that high point and sticking with that. Those are the signals that people, in addition to, of course, technical competency, you need to have technical competency,
Of
to have
course,
the
yeah.
functional domain, need to have all that. But in addition to that is that. And I think the last point, the last signal is additionally how inclusive you are. Is it all about me, me, me? Or is it also about we, us, the customer, the stakeholders, the shareholders? Are you speaking languages that everybody else can understand? Or are you only speaking because you're so great at rocket science? Or you're so great at quant finance, you only speak that language and you assume that people should understand you as well? So that's another signal.
So, all these things that you've said, Kenneth, right now, I want to ask this question. Are all these a part of executive influence, executive presence? Does it
Yes.
come under that?
Yes, loudly, and say yes. It's so hence executive presence is not about polish. Executive presence is not about how loudly you speak. Executive presence is also how you remain calm. Executive presence is your quietness under pressure. Executive presence is the energy that you leave in a room that is chaotic, but you bring in energy that directs people. Executive presence is your ability to hold on to decisions that probably are very challenging. Executive presence is your ability to connect the dots among other people in the room. Executive presence is your ability to think on behalf, the executive, right? Stakeholders, board members, customers, people, employees, community. How can you use all that language together and make sure that your
Absolutely.
idea sticks?
And what this reinforces is that presence, executive presence, is built in everyday moments. How you communicate, how you handle pressure, and how you create clarity.
Yep.
So, people around you are constantly forming conclusions about a leader's readiness, often silently. And I think those conclusions compound over time. Since we're talking about practical actions that leaders can take, I want to ask this to you, Kenneth. For leaders listening to this, what are a few practical shifts they can start making today to strengthen their leadership presence and credibility?
I think it's easy. The first thing, and it's said so often, but people don't do it, is prepare. For example, for this webinar, prepare. Write down a few things. Use ChatGPT. I got ChatGPT up. Today you have, notes that can be available that you can just quickly read
Yeah.
and be there. So preparation is very important. But preparation does not mean that you also sound rushed. Oh, I prepared all this. Let me just now
Hmm.
unload it onto people.
Yes, yes.
Along with preparation is also occasionally slowing down your brain. Yeah, I'm saying that. Slowing down your brain in tough situations, being able to not jump to conclusions and just say, again, I'll say, breathe in and create thinking space. So much so that, people then gravitate towards that heavy thinker. Like, that person is thinking something. What are you thinking? People should come to you. Your face should also be able to express thought, not just your words. It might be a small body language where you're saying something like, I'm thinking, or just looking up into the distance and showing that you're in a thought process, rather than, those people who are just doe-eyed and saying, I have no idea what you're saying. Your
Yes.
expression matters. So that's a practical tip. If there's a thought and you're slowing down thinking, let your expression on your face and your body language also match that. So people know that you're there present in the room, rather than being doe-eyed or, deer in the headlights kind of look,
Or
or the
just zoned
lost
out,
look,
or a
or
lot of
or a
times, yeah.
shrunk look that you don't know you're looking away. Those things are things to avoid, and hence have body language and expressions that show curiosity and thought. The second thing is always the first sentence, land it well. For example, I said, I call bullshit on executive presence, didn't I?
Ah, yes.
Your first sentence should be able to just hit home. Shock or your first 20 seconds matter. So that's what you plan for, right? You plan for. And you plan that not just because you're articulate and you know English or your language really well. You plan for because you want to create an impact and you want to make that point very, very clear. The third thing is, I tell practically, people always try to use discounting disclaimers in their sentences. I'm sorry, I have to say this. Or can I say something? Or don't you think if this works, this will be better? Or forgive me if this sounds rude. All these are called discounting disclaimers. The moment you say things like this, you think you're acting diplomatic, but honestly, you are destroying your brand and your presence. This is where I'll say come from position versus permission. What does that simply mean? Instead of saying, I think, say, my read in this situation is this, or I know confidently that this is what it needs to be. Speak with conviction. So hence, come from a place of position and conviction versus coming from a place of permission or hesitation or doubt. It makes a big difference in the way you speak. The fourth
Just
tip that I have is actually different from all of these tips. And the other tip is listen. Executive presence is not just about talking. It's about asking questions, being curious, and listening to the answer. For example, when somebody comes and says, hey, you know what, we have to change our strategy. We have some new roadmaps in place. Instead of saying, hey, I have an idea too, and saying, I need to show off to show up. Before you do that, be curious. Ask questions like, okay, what exactly is in the roadmap? What's really changing? How does that impact our business? Asking questions can also be a way in which you can show up, and then listening, taking down notes and saying, oh, wow, I'm learning something, and then showing up with your ideas, showing up with your buts and your no's and your contradictions and your opinions and your questions. Listen as well. And the last piece, I have a fifth recommendation here, is be in touch with your emotions. I use the word name it to tame it. Have you felt nervous, Akanksha, in a meeting?
yeah, a lot of times.
If you're nervous, instead of feeding into the nervousness, tell yourself, I am nervous. And hence
Okay.
what I choose to do is this.
That's something new.
If you feel angry, tell yourself, I feel angry. The moment you tell yourself something, what happens is your old brain, which is your amygdala, which is in charge of regulating your emotions, suddenly stops emoting. And the signal is sent to your prefrontal cortex. Now, this is actual neuroscience. The signal is sent to your prefrontal cortex, and the prefrontal cortex, which is your rational brain, takes the signal that you're angry and makes it into logic and gives you that space or the place to decide what to do next. So practicing your emotional range, naming it to tame it, not allowing the amygdala hijack to happen, but instead allowing space for your prefrontal cortex to start making rational decisions is important. Yeah.
Well, Kenneth, this has been really interesting and a lot of new things you've introduced us to. And I'm quite glad for this. And so, which brings me to my last question, Kenneth, that there's still a perception that executive coaching is optional or only needed when something is wrong. So, from your experience, how important is coaching in shaping executive presence? And what does coaching process actually help the leader see or change?
See, there's a misnomer out there. There's a misunderstanding that coaching is remedial, right? It's
Yes.
been sold that, we need to give you a coach or you need to be coached. And people say, do I have a problem? So here's how we sell this. Here's at least how I sell it. I say this is about enhancement. You're already good. We want you to be better. This is about opportunity creation and also understanding what opportunity loss you will get, how coaching can actually help you in getting more opportunities coming to you, in expanding your range. You're already good in X. We are making you good now in Y as well. You are already a subject matter expert. There are a lot of people who need to know about what your thoughts are. This is about now creating an amplification of those subject matter expertise and the thoughts that it is. So coaching is about range expansion. Coaching is about opportunity creation. And hence, we say that. At the same time, we say coaching is a whole lot about also showing you the mirror. Many times we don't really look at ourselves and tell ourselves, I'm not good at this. For the longest time, I'm impatient as a person. And naturally I'm impatient. Naturally, I'm not a great listener. But when the mirror was shown to me by some really good managers and some coaches and some trainers that worked with me, I realized that I need to take a hard look at myself. I'm still developing it. I'm not there yet. I'm still developing it. And it has helped me. It has helped me, the showing the mirror. And the third thing that a coach does really well is challenge you. That once you get started, you also need constant pushes, because you feel every new thing is like going up a hill, but you have somebody, pushing you or taking you along. It just makes the journey a little less lonely, more accountable. And also it's like walking on a road and someone to talk to. You feel
Yeah.
that. And then when you talk to the person, you feel, oh my God, I walked such a long distance and I didn't even realize it. It's because there was somebody with you rather than just doing it yourself. So that's how I see, the coach's job is all about mirroring blind spots. It's about rewiring the need towards, range expansion. It's about helping people challenge themselves and pushing themselves when they find that the road is too long or too difficult for them to cross. So it's a whole lot about that.
Absolutely. And what we constantly see is that coaching provides something leaders rarely have, an
Yeah.
objective mirror. So at senior levels, feedback becomes filtered.
Yep.
And of course, expectations increase. Leaders often have fewer spaces where they can think openly. And coaching creates that space, not to change who they are, but to help them align how they're perceived with the leader they want to become.
True.
So, yes, Kenneth, this conversation has brought incredible clarity to a topic that is often misunderstood. And what stands out most is that career growth at senior levels isn't determined only by capability. It's shaped by trust, by perception, and by how consistently leaders signal readiness for greater responsibility. So, executive presence isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming more intentional, more aware of how your leadership is experienced by others. So, Kenneth, before we close, what is that one final piece of advice you would offer leaders aspiring to step into a bigger role?
If you think you're good, you can be better. If you think you're not great at your presence, you can always develop it. That's the beauty of executive presence. It is a bunch of tools, tips, hacks that you can learn. It will seem uncomfortable in the beginning. It's almost like, for people who move to say from riding a bike to driving a car, or people who move from say using a notepad and pen to taking notes to using a tab to making notes. It's uncomfortable, but at the end of the day, it's a skill. And just like any skill, it has proficiency levels. You don't need to be a master presenter. You don't need to be the next Trevor Noah, or you need to be the next Barack Obama level, or Martin Luther King inspiring kind of a speech, or even Narendra Modi, if you look up to him and the way he speaks. You don't need to be that level. You become the best version of you. And the good thing about executive presence is that it makes you into the best version of you versus the best version of another person. And hence, as coaches, trainers, the job that we do is all about that. It's giving you the tools and tips in which you can make sure that your presence is noticed, remembered, and it makes a difference even after you walk outside that room. So that's my final words.
Thank you so much, Kenneth. Thank you for sharing your insights and experience with us today. And honestly, this has been one of my favorite episodes so far. And in such a short span, we've covered so much. And the range that we've spoken about, I think we were able to see the range that you brought, how much depth you brought with this conversation. Amazing. And to everybody listening, thank you for joining us at the Leadership Edit by CXO Steps. At CXO Steps, we work with senior leaders across the world through highly personalized one to one executive coaching, helping them strengthen their leadership presence and prepare for the next phase of their careers. So, ladies and gentlemen, if today's conversation resonated with you, you can learn more about us at www.cxosteps.com. Until next time, this is Akansha Singh, and this was the Leadership Edit. Thank you.